Okay, sure we'll have some late joiners, but I think for the sake of time, we'll get this show on the road. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I know your time is precious, so we're going to keep this one short and sweet. And today we'll be introducing Just, who is the post-retirement specialist within the Icon suite and kind of the country as a whole, actually. We are really proud and excited to be working with Just, making a difference in the retirement space, and solving some really fundamental problems that are plaguing most of the retirees in South Africa. Just to introduce the panelists who'll be chatting today. So Yaku Pina and Jacques Theron, they are the product specialists at Just. And they travel all over South Africa, assisting advisors with post-retirement planning. And for the session today, we're going to give a brief introduction to Just. I know some of you in the room have been exposed to them. Some of you have even, supported them. But for those who haven't, we just want to introduce who Just are and what they do. And then importantly, we want to showcase some of their analysis that they do in financial practices to really use as a litmus test to understand the health of a retiree book. And through that process, you're able to identify clients that are in urgent help or in urgent need of help, either drawing down too aggressively or going to outlive their capital. So please make it interactive if you've got any questions. This is a really informal session. We didn't even want to call it a webinar. We wanted to call it an information session because of that. So yeah, chip in along the way. If you've got questions, put them in the chat, raise your hand. I'll be monitoring that. You don't need to wait until the end because I think that's really how we can add more value. If there's something on your mind, it's probably on someone else's mind in the room. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Yaku Pina. Yeah, take it away, Yaku.
Right, thanks, Jono. And good morning, everybody. I hope you all are well, and may you and your families have a blessed year for the year that lies ahead. So as Jono mentioned, we've actually met a couple of you guys over the last year, working together with Icon and Just Retirement. So I think I just want to, as an introduction, I just want to recap some of the numbers from a Just perspective. You can see, I think always the important thing when it comes to lifetime income or guaranteed annuities, specifically the companies that you work with. Just South Africa was founded in 2015, but we form part of a wider group, the Just Group, that's listed on the London Stock Exchange. It's the largest writer of guaranteed annuities in the UK, in the United Kingdom. They've currently got about 505 billion rands in assets under management, or what I refer to sometimes as annuities under management. Yesterday, they came out with their latest financial results, so the solvency capital requirements actually increased from their side. But from a guaranteed annuities perspective, in the South African market, it's with the backing of the UK, it actually gives us access to their international credit rating. Being a large player in that market, they are, as I said, listed, which makes a big difference in terms of their business. They do offer certain products that we don't offer in the market as yet, something that we are investigating and looking at. I think the one thing that always stands out here for me is that it's the amount of new premiums that they write. That was 2021's figure in terms of the new premiums that they've written. They have now written, last year they did about 68 billion rands of new retirees in the UK market. Just interesting, in an industry perspective, we don't even get close to that. The latest numbers that I've seen, we've done about 20 billion in living annuity post-retirement income benefits. Jock, if you can move one on there, please. So from a South African perspective, as I said, we started in 2015. I think there's two big components that always stand out here for me. Is that we're a business that's grown, and we've grown consistently over the last couple of years. Currently, we service around 5,500 policyholders. And this is an old number, but we're actually closer to 7 billion rands in annuities under management. We need a couple of 100 million. Then we'll be there. But so a big number for us in terms of the annuities under management. It makes us the fourth or fifth largest annuity provider in the South African market, with the bigger ones being Momentum, Old Mutual, and Sanlam. Another component that always stands out for me is our default appointments. So with the onset of the default annuity legislation that started in 2012, and the amalgamation of that act for pension funds in 2018 or 19, if I can remember, and last year, we've been appointed at over 100 funds, actually closer to 130 funds in terms of being their preferred default annuity provider. So in various areas, the pension fund trustees has chosen Just as the preferred guaranteed annuity provider for the employees, which is quite important. So as you can see, some of those default annuities that we look after, we've been appointed at Allan Gray on all their post-retirement income, or all their pre-retirement funds, their living annuities, their preservation funds, their pension funds, and even their umbrella fund. The same applies to Signia. We've also been appointed at various universities, including Stellenbosch University, Mediclinic, Tiger Brands, and then we also look after the largest provident fund in the South African market, which is the Mine Workers Provident Fund. We developed a specific guaranteed annuity solution for them. I think always the interesting thing, I always say, I think we are the most due diligence company over the last 5 years in the South African market, just purely because we started developing guaranteed annuity solutions in living annuities, and then also on a standalone basis with the companies like Allan Gray, where we make use of the Allan Gray Balance Fund, Citadel, Alexander Forbes, Coro, 91, Signia, PPS, M&G. We've partnered with a wide range of asset managers. We're always in discussions with larger living annuity books, and so those are continuous discussions for us to build on that. I think the important thing is if we start looking at it's a very interesting time in the post-retirement income market in South Africa. Historically we had people just investing in guaranteed annuities or defined benefit funds, and then into living annuities, and all of a sudden what we are seeing is this a lot of blended solutions coming into the South African market. But together with that, Jock, if you can move on, please. Together with that, there are also a lot of risks, but a very interesting time. As part of our value proposition, one of the things that we look at is the state of the health of the retired nation. So one of our value propositions that we do is we do actually look at your health, your socioeconomic class, and your lifestyle behavioral factors when it comes to providing guaranteed annuities. Something that we brought through from the UK, where they are applying underwriting principles. And the principle is quite easy. If you suffer from a medical condition that impacts your life expectancy, Just say through our modeling that we've got, can possibly give you an increase in your starting annuity, because we understand that certain medical conditions impact your life expectancy. So just to give you an idea, let's say we have got a professional that suffers from diabetes, but he smokes. On average, their life expectancy for a professional is quite high. It's at around, for a 65-year-old male, as an example, is to age 87. But we know that with certain medical conditions and certain behaviors, that your life expectancy reduces. So we are able to impact your premium, or the benefit that you're going to get in terms of starting annuity from our guaranteed annuities will be higher. So it's a 20-minute telephone call, non-invasive, no physical bloods that we need from any provider. Maybe just to give you an idea in terms of how it works in the UK, which is always quite interesting. In the UK, they make use of your post office address, or your area code as an example to get an indication of what your socioeconomic class would be like. We can't do the same in South Africa because of the different areas that share the same postal codes. But this technology is quite enlightening. We are the only provider in the South African market currently that provide this benefit. You know, as I said earlier, the post-retirement income market is in for some interesting times. You can go, Jock, thanks. And what we are seeing is new business coming in, and new products being developed on a consistent basis. And I think it's mainly driven by this information that we see here. Currently in the South African market, above the age of 50, there's around 10.5 million people, which is, if you look at the market over age 60, there's around 5.6 or 5.5 million people older than the age of 60. But if you go further and you go and dig a little bit in the statistics, we've only got 345,000 living annuity accounts in the South African market, with around 412 billion rand invested in living annuities across the board. Every year in the living annuity market, or this last year up until September, we did around 16 billion rands worth of new business into that space. And together with that, there's a lot of risks that's coming to the fore. You know, so with the onset of specifically COVID, I think this has come to the fore even more. If we look at some of these risks in the retirement that we see, longevity, investment risk, inflation risk, and behavioral risk, these risks are real, and you're seeing it on a consistent basis. And that's why, with the change in market, we've actually started developing solutions where you can get the best of both worlds, something like a blended living annuity, where the advisors have access to those type of things. But if we look at life expectancy, and we do some sort of longitudinal study every year, with about 500 clients and non-clients, where we ask them certain questions. And one of the questions that we've asked them over the last couple of years is, how long do you expect to live? And if you look at the age of 80, you look at the age of 65 to 69, the predicted life expectancy for a male is 82. But what they say is that on average they'll live to 80. If you add that number as a professional, as a graduate professional, on average will live to the age of 87. And then if you look on the female side, females underestimate their life expectancy by around 4 years. On average, a 65-year-old female will live to the age of 87. And this is important, especially when it comes to planning. I think one of the things that we've already started seeing is how mortality models will start playing a role in the investment markets, with the likes of BlackRock overseas starting to use mortality modeling when it comes to drawdown or living annuity products. Locally, we'll start seeing the use of our mortality tables and life expectancy tables a lot more. You can even see it in some of the articles that's come out from Discovery that's recently launched their own DFM. They're going to start making use of life expectancy tables a lot more in investment planning. So definitely some good things lying ahead from a financial planning perspective, in the future, developing tools that can assist you. And I think one of the other things that we've definitely seen, and this is something that we don't see often, or we've seen it a lot more over the last couple of years. This original slide was built by M&G, where they started talking about sequence of returns risk. And interestingly, there's a lot of research out there locally. There was research done on annuity decision making on the Stellenbosch University pension fund, where a lot of the retirees that retired in 2016 in that fund actually retired on a down market. And what those numbers showed in that research paper is that most of those professors or graduates in that pension fund actually lost money. And because of the fact that they lost money and they couldn't recoup it over the last 5 years, it's actually reduced sustainability of their living annuity income by around 3 years, just because of that market shock that we had over this last couple of years. And so the question that arose from that was, if you think about retirement now, would you have retired in a living annuity product or a different type of product if you could do this over again? What it unfortunately did for a lot of the clients, that they either had to reduce their drawdown rate or they had to start consulting or working again. And so it's interesting, if you start looking around, you see a lot of professors these days doing odd jobs, either teaching additional classes or maths classes, an example, to get that sustainable income, but also or create an additional income stream, but also keep their spirit up. Okay, Jacques, thanks. I think that the other thing that we've seen is John.
Yeah, just to ask a quick question. I mean, these stats are fascinating. With Big Brother Just UK being, in a completely different market abroad and different socioeconomic circumstances, what's happening over there? I mean, is it vastly different to what's happening here?
Yeah, John, so I think, one of the things that we've definitely seen from their side, firstly, their longevity has been impacted in COVID. It's been impacted a little bit more than, well, definitely more than ours. In our pool, we've seen people living longer. In the UK, we've seen more people passing away at the older ages. The other thing that we're obviously seeing there is high inflation, extremely high inflation compared to the South African market. Look, in the UK, they look after, because of the change in TCF and the change in the way that they remunerate financial advisors, the middle class has actually been neglected totally. So what we do see a lot there is a lot of people taking up guaranteed annuities first and then moving into drawdown, if they can afford moving into drawdown, which is equivalent to a living annuity type of product. So one of the other things that they've recently launched, and they've taken it from this side in the South African market, is a blended type of living annuity. They call it a blended drawdown solution. So hopefully in the future we can see some of their products coming to us as they've taken over some of our products in the market.
I think, John, just the other thing that is important is, with pensions freedom that came about in 2016 in the UK, where pensioners could decide whatever they want to do with their pot of money, a lot of them offered or opted to go for what they called this income for life, or this drawdown percentage type of product, but they didn't have the experience that we've had for so many years and the governance around the product and the management of drawdown rates. So what the industry is facing quite seriously in the UK at this point is the fact that a lot of folk are drawing down way in excess of what is sustainable, and the advisors, they are still cottoning on to the fact that this is important and the managing of the drawdown rates are important. So I think for the first time, it is an African country that is actually ahead of a first world country from the management of a financial product.
Interesting.
Look, and Jacques makes a valid point there. It's not only in the UK that they're struggling. We're struggling, the UK is struggling in terms of getting solutions that can help people retire better. Even in the US, the US in the old days, they created the 4% rule. In the US, it's now called the 2.9%, 2.9% rule. If you draw more than 2.8% in the US market, you're going to run out of capital. That basically just means that people have to draw down less to make sure it works. So there's a big drive in the US when it comes to those type of annuities as well. I think, just getting back to the specific slide, it's all in well that we see that we see the normal headline inflation, but we actually need to start measuring pensioners' inflation as well. On average, what we see is that pensioners' inflation is around 3% higher than headline inflation. So you're going to add 3% to all of these numbers for people that are in retirement. It's mainly driven by medical expenses, medical aid increasing more. So and that also brings us to what we've started seeing people doing. More people are asking for for an income that's payable for the rest of their lives, for them and for their spouse, should something happen to them, because they need to generate income for these regular bills. That's why I'm bringing it up a little bit later, but if you look at the market, historically 90% of business went into a living annuity. Why? Because we had the returns in the market. The question now, what's starting to happen now, is that we're starting to see billions of rands moving into guaranteed annuities. To such an extent that over the last 2 years, it's fallen from 90 to 70%. It's only going into living annuities. And you can definitely see that trend moving down. And you can just, if you just look at the numbers of the insurers, by the way, it's available in their financial sheets to see how that happens. And also, if you look at long-term care, long-term care costs it's extensive. It's extensive and very expensive. And people are trying to get some sort of protection that can assist them to carry those costs. What we're currently seeing in long-term care is extensive costs, but it's mainly paid for by the family members, not by the savings of the member of the client that's there, because they didn't have enough savings. The one thing that's interesting for me that always stands out here is it's always been this discussion around legacy. I want to leave money to my children, but I also want to have an income that pays an income for the rest of my life. With the new solutions in the market, you can actually have those best of both worlds. You can make sure that you've got some sort of legacy, but you've also got a sustainable income by still managing your living annuity. But my answer always very quickly to somebody that wants to inherit, get life cover. Take out life cover on your let them live with their money that they've got, because more often they want to leave it, but at a great cost for their sustainability in the future. So I think always, we don't. The man on the ground that works with the clients don't always have access to these type of statistics that we've got. So one of the nice things working with a lot of the living annuity business partners is that we can see the trends happening in the market in terms of living annuities. So we've taken around 20,000 a random sample of 20,000 people in the market where we've got access to living annuity data. And it's interesting, if you go and plug that in, you can see the average drawdown rate of those 20,000 people is around 8.5%, which is highly unsustainable. Even the Ombud has referred to this in a recent report, which says, we know this is unsustainable, but yet people are still drawing at those levels. And then if you look at the average age is around 71 years in the living annuity. That shows one thing the one thing that it shows me is that people are actually working longer than what they wanted to work, which is good. It's possibly driven by advisor behavior, telling them that they should wait longer before they retire, as one example. But interestingly, if we go and have a look at this, so if you look at the safe zone, those are people drawing below the FECA recommended drawdown rates. People in that risky zone are people that are drawing just above the CISA or the FECA proposed rates. Those are people that actually need to be in some sort of guaranteed annuity solution, because they will run out of money. And then people that are on the danger zone, even if we strip out that those on the 17.5% curve that on purpose are drawing down their living annuities, you will still get to around 7.9% average drawdown rate. But yeah, so for those people, there are solutions out in the market in terms of what we can offer for hybrid or blended type of annuities, to give them access to solutions that will actually give them the ability to have a sustainable income in retirement, which is the biggest factor. Together with this longevity, there's really solutions that can offer that. And the interesting, I think I maybe need to just give one step back and say, we offer these solutions, and we build these solutions with the advisor in mind, because we don't want the advisor to put everything into guaranteed annuities, because it's not always necessary. You can do it in blended living, in a living annuity product. But for you as the advisor, your income is still protected, because from a Just perspective, and now from some competitors' perspective, we found solutions, and we found a way to still protect your assets under management within living annuities. So firstly, you're going to do the right thing for the client by creating a sustainable income for him and his spouse. And because you're an active advisor, you will still continue to be paid for that as an advisor. But if we look at maybe just moving into those type of annuity splits that we spoke about previously, I think, good. Yeah, Joel, go to the next one. I think I've spoken about this.
Yeah,
Yes, John. Sorry, man.
So I've just got a quick question. 2 slides back, where you had that scatter plot of the industry and the average, or the overview of the situation from that random sample. What does that pink line indicate? I mean,
sorry, yeah. So John, that's the annuity rate that annuity provider like Just would offer a client at those specific ages. To be honest, I really think Joel can jump in here, but those annuity rates are actually out of date. It's actually more at this moment. We've just used an average there, but if we look at a 70-year-old, let's say we look at a 70-year-old, the FSCA says you need to draw around 4.5%. Get a CPI plus 4 or CPI plus 5% return, your capital will last for 33 years. But the annuity rate that we're offering is 7.2%. So if you take R1 million, we're basically saying you can draw 4,500, and for 33 years, if you get the return, you'll have your capital back, or you'll get 7,200 Rand every year or every month, increasing every year by inflation for as long as you're alive. But the question is, can we combine it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a huge concentration of retirees, especially between the age of 60 and 80, along that line. So, and like many below it. So those people could enter into a guaranteed annuity structure, actually get a higher income than what they're drawing now, and guarantee that for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So John, if you look at Jock, if you can go before you take over on the case study, but if you look at 2 slides on, what we are expecting over the year is we are expecting people to see their real income fall. And we're seeing around 70% of people seeing their income fall just because of high inflation and poor market returns. And there's only 2 ways that you can stop this. The one is get higher returns, influence your fees, or pensioners need to die earlier at this moment. And that's why we're seeing this, that's why we're seeing these type of products becoming more favorable. But so, Jono, thanks. Jock's going to take over now. He's just going to take us through what we can do for the advisor to assist them to look at their book, and he's also going to take us through a case study.
Jacques, I think we've lost your audio. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Jono?
There we go. Not sure what happened there.
I'll just see a sec. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome, great stuff. So as I said, we are going to be talking in this section about what about not. So can you still see the screen? Let me just check that.
Yes, we can.
All right, great stuff. So as I said, we're talking about what about the not so new solution, because it's been around since since 2017. And this is what we refer to as the blended living annuity. So I'm going to, in literally 30 seconds, just explain the difference between a blended living annuity and a hybrid living annuity, because a hybrid living annuity is literally two products, a life annuity and a living annuity, wrapped together in a very pretty bow, and both incomes are paid to the client as a single income. But for all intents and purposes, it's a separate product. It's two separate products. Whereas the blended living annuity is a living annuity where the lifetime income or the guaranteed income component sits inside of that living annuity as an investment fund. And because it's an investment fund, it means you can switch into it into the future as and when the client's risk profile or appetite dictates the switch into that portfolio. So to make it more practical, we're going to show you a case study this morning of a typical 70-year-old male, 69-year-old female. The drawdown rate currently in the living annuity is 5.77%. So if we do the comparisons between a living annuity where there is the guaranteed component or the just lifetime income fund versus one where there is no just lifetime income fund, you'll see obviously there is no benchmark blend percentage for the without Julie. There is no Julie annuity rate, and there is no implied drawdown rate on the remainder because everything is invested in traditional investment portfolios. The required sustainability is 85, and the essential sustainability sits at 88. So the required sustainability is the point at which the main would pass. And then if we look at the component that holds the Julie component, so where you've allocated 60% of your fund credit to this just lifetime income portfolio, we've offered an annuity rate of 7.1%, which means if you look at the income that the client's drawing, if 7.1% of that income is coming from the guaranteed component, the implied drawdown rate on the 40% assets that remain in traditional investment portfolios come down to 3.1%. So by default, it's making the longevity of the living annuity so much longer and the income sustainability from the combined living annuity that much longer. So your required sustainability with this blend now increases to 93 years and over 100 years for your essential sustainability from an essential expense perspective. So if we look at that from a graph perspective, it looks like this. So at this point, we've got absolutely nothing in the lifetime income. That's why it says 0 in lifetime income. And you can see the gray line in this graph represents a standard living annuity. And your blue section reflects a blended living annuity. And the yellow line represents the average life expectancy of the male. And the purple line, the average life expectancy of the couple, of the joint life couple. And we're always comparing income on the left with the proposed actual death benefit on the right, because obviously nothing in life comes for free. So in exchange for this income security, you are exchanging capital lump sum available as a death benefit to the nominated beneficiaries at the point of death. So if we now move this and say we allocate 60% of the assets and we put that into the lifetime income component, you will see that the income that the client and the spouse will receive has now been increased all the way up to the age of 95. So you've got an additional 8 years worth of income at the same rate in real terms as what you would have had if you stayed in a normal living annuity. And importantly, your essential expenses have been covered for an additional 12 years before it starts dipping ever so slightly below that essential expense mark. And you can see the essential expense section is represented by that orange bit in that graph. And what is very, very insightful about this is that you can see on the right-hand side, in the early years, obviously, there is a considerable difference in what is available from a death benefit perspective to the nominated beneficiaries. But we refer to these as the early death benefit events or the early death events. The reason why clients are blending is because they are solving for having income security up to at least the average life expectancy. And if you look at the average life expectancy, the combined capital and income legacy benefit available to the beneficiaries is very closely aligned to what would have been available in the event that the client or the couple did not blend. But as you move beyond the average life expectancy of the male and move towards the life expectancy of the joint life couple, you can see that the capital benefit, so that portion of the death benefit that is available as a lump sum, is again very closely aligned to what would have been available from the traditional living annuity where you didn't blend, but the income legacy component, i.e. the 75% income that the spouse is going to receive for as long as she remains alive, actually is a lot more than what would have been the case if they didn't blend. Because remember, if there was no blend, the spouse would have had to survive on the fund credit available at the point of death. So let's call that at 92, roughly, let's say 350,000 Rand. That would have been from where she would have had to draw her income from. So if you look at this, this is just a rough guideline in terms of how it works. So if your client is age 70 to 75 and they are drawing 2.5% specifically, then they can have additional 10.7 years more from an income perspective. So the sustainability of their current drawdown is increased substantially by doing the blends specifically into the guaranteed lifetime income component. Now, oftentimes when we work with advisors, we are asked, so how do I get to know who I should blend for? Who should I give a look at from my client base perspective? And that's where the retirement analysis comes in and the scatter plot exercise. Now, the question is, which clients should blend and how do I know? And we talk about a scatter plot helping with that. So what are blended annuity scatter plots? It's literally a helicopter view for an advisor to show them all of their living annuity contracts and how those living annuities are being plotted into different zones, specifically within the drawdown versus your age axis. And if you recall earlier to that slide that Yaku showed in terms of the population overall for those 20,000 living annuity clients that we looked at, you will recall we had the coral line that you asked the question about, Jonathan, and we had the blue line. So now this just sets out the coral line is our Julie high grow annuity rates by gender and age at a specific point. And the blue line represents the FSCA's recommended drawdown rate for individuals at that specific integral and verticals. So this next slide, literally, what this does is just an example of an advisor's living annuity book. This is a representation of his male clients on a single life basis. And you can see that we have 4 zones. Zone 1 are those clients that are comfortably drawing less than the recommended drawdown rate by the FSCA. So if they continue to draw down at these rates, the chances of them running out of income before their life expectancy is rather slim to none. Then you have individuals in zone 2 where they are drawing more than the required drawdown rate of the FSCA, but less than the correspondent Julie annuity rate. So these are the individuals where we believe it's a no-brainer to do the blending, because if you are drawing at let's call it 5%, or you're drawing 5,000 Rand a month from your living annuity, and you can secure 3,000 of that 5,000 Rand by buying lifetime income with 50% of your assets, then it means you're only going to be disinvesting 2,000 Rand from the other 50% that's sitting in the traditional investment portfolios. Therefore, the inferred drawdown rate on those assets become a lot lower. And because that's lower, the sustainability and the longevity of that specific asset class, the 50% that is in the traditional assets, is now being extended considerably. So what happens is the client can now utilize the living annuity and all of the flexibility that comes with it for a much longer period. And then you have those individuals sitting in zone 3. Now, these are the individuals that are drawing income that is in excess of the guaranteed annuity rate that we can offer. Now, just a brief side note, the guaranteed annuity rate is literally our best estimate of an income that we can pay you up to your average life expectancy, with the promise that if you live beyond that, you will still receive an income. So that's, and because of the risk pooling associated with a guaranteed annuity rate, that income is considerably higher as opposed to when you are in traditional living annuity where you are self-insured. So if you are drawing at a drawdown rate that's higher than the suggested guaranteed annuity rate that you've been offered, the chances are very good that you are going to be running out of income without blending very quickly and way before your average life expectancy. So for those individuals, I like to refer to them as advisors giving those clients, you buying them time. You're giving them an opportunity to adjust their lifestyle or their budget to such a way that when the traditional asset component has run out, they are able to live off of the guaranteed income stream that was secured via the blend. Because it's inevitable, they are going to run out of money. The question is, are they going to run out of money up to the point of zero, so flat line at the end, or are they going to run out of money but still have this safety net so that they know that they're going to run out of money but they'll never fall below the safety net, which is then represented by the amount blended into the guaranteed lifetime income component. But what is inevitable is that they are going to see a substantial decrease in the income that they are drawing. So what this does is it allows them, it buys them time to, in a year or 2 or 3, adjust their lifestyle or find a way to supplement their incomes, because they are going to run out of money. And then those in zone 4, those are the ones that I hardly ever speak to with advisors, because I have yet to come across an advisor that don't know those individuals by name and know their stories by heart. So everyone has a specific reason why they're drawing at those rates. And obviously for those individuals, blending will never make sense because they are in need of 100% of that 17.5% that they are drawing. And then I'd like to just end off by showing you these links. So this is the access to our website locally, where you can see our products, which is our justsa.co.za website. And if you want to have more information around the groups and what the group does, you can access the group website via www.wearejust.co.uk. Thanks, Jono.
Thanks, Jacques. So just in terms of that blending, how do the advisors do that exercise? How can they practically get a helicopter view of their retiree book?
So what we would need from the advisor is anonymous data. So a unique identifier that they would be able to tie back to an individual. Then we need the client's gender, their date of birth, their current drawdown rate, their current fund credits that they hold in the living annuity, and the anniversary month. And we will then put that through our application in bulk, and then provide them with an Excel macro result where they can then slice and dice the data according to their needs.
Cool. And then I'm right in saying that they can actually get those reports quite easily from the likes of, Alan Gray, Signia, or whatever platform they're using.
Whatever platform they are using. Those reports are typically referred to as book reports.
Yeah.
So they'll get a book report for a specific product from the platform.
Perfect. Thanks, Jacques, and thanks, Yaku. So everyone in the room, again, thank you for your time. The Icon team will be reaching out to each one of you just to get your feedback, and obviously gauge your interest in taking the conversation further. We've done this exercise with a number of our advisors, and it's been fascinating and enlightening for them. It's showed them and given them insights that they were previously unaware of, and really uncovered opportunities to help clients. So we'll be in touch within the next day or two. But yeah, again, thank you for your time. If you've got any questions, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes afterwards. Otherwise, we'll chat again soon.
I'll stay on with you, Jono.
Cool.
No, thanks. So I just need to move to another meeting, but thank you.
Cheers, Yaku. Thanks, bye.
Cheers.
Cool. I think we're all good. Thanks again, Jacques.
No problem. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
For the time.
Have a good weekend.
Bye now.